All right, Tribe, welcome in our friend Joe Downs. Joe, great to have you on today.
Russ, what a pleasure to see you again, and it's great to be here. I can't thank you guys enough for having me.
Joe, you've been doing a lot of things in real estate up to this point,
Mhm.
and you and Joey are at a conference and you're talking about self-storage and how to buy them and acquire them. I think you said that you guys have acquired how many properties so far?
18.
18. You've acquired 18 properties. And how many properties have you looked at up until this point to buy 18?
Oh, great question, Russ. So, on average, I would say we underwrite 30-ish properties a week in various levels of underwriting. Sometimes you filters, you kick them out, sometimes right away through the process. Sometimes they make it all the way through, but probably at least 30 a week. And of those 30 a week, it's hard to even say because we don't even make offers every week. But if we're looking at 30 a week, that's what 1,500 a year. We probably
Wow.
make 15 to 20 offers,
Man.
and we're probably successful on 5 to 8 offers a year. We've only acquired 18 in 5 years. I mean, 2 of those years were pretty tough years in the industry, but still, I mean, the most we've acquired in 1 year, 7.
What's the most important resource that you have? If you really thought about this deeply, I think you'd come to the same conclusion that Joey and I did. It's time. In our newest book, What's Without Wall Street, The 3 Steps to Financial Freedom Through Passive Income, we talk about how are we tracking that time? Well, what is the thing that we can do to get more of that time back?
That's right. If you've ever been listening to our podcast and thought, man, it would be amazing if I could take all the things that you guys have learned over the last 10 years and just summarize them, put them in some way to easily digest them and take action, that's what this book is all about. You're not going to want to miss it. Go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/new book and get your copy today.
It's fair to say, Tribe, if we're going to ask some questions of Joe around how to buy actively in the self-storage space, he has a decent understanding of what it takes to make that happen. So hence the reason why we're having you on the show, Joe, is we want to ask these questions because I'm going to take you back to when in college, my first idea for creating passive income was owning a self-storage facility. The idea in our tribe may have heard me say this before if they've been around long enough, is that I've thought that was going to be my mom's job. She was going to be the manager. I was going to give her an apartment above the office, and she'd be set for life, right? She'd always have a job. She would always have a place to stay, and I would create passive income. Now, that never happened. The closest I ever got to that is that when I built a house kind of off the beaten path, there was a self-storage facility, still is, about a half a mile from our house. And the guy that I went to church with came up to me one day and said, "Hey, don't you live over off, this road?" I said, "I do." He said, "My dad owned a self-storage." I go, "Yeah, I turned by there to go to my house every day." He said, "Well, he died." And then, obviously we're talking about that. And he's like, I don't know what to do with it. Do you know anybody who would want it? And I was like, maybe me, like this would be an opportunity. And as I tried to start digging into it, there was just so many things I didn't know. And most people would be like, well, Russ, has never stopped you before. But in this situation, it did because it just seemed to be much bigger than I had the capability at that time. Because this was like 6 or 7 years ago. And I want to kind of like run that by you because if someone's thinking about buying actively, right? And like Joey and I thinking about this as an opportunity for us to be on. We've had Scott Myers on the podcast. We've had many, many others. And the fact that you and Joey were at an event with Scott Myers, I would just love us to have this time together and just talk about how would we do that? How would have I done that? How would you consult with other people to do that? And, what are all those hurdles given the fact that you guys evaluated 1,500 deals a year for 5 years?
Russ, your idea was spot on, right? Your head's in the right place. And that's not a surprise because look at where you and Joey are with this podcast, right? And what you do. Right. So your idea was spot on. It's probably better that you didn't pull the trigger. If you were in multifamily, for instance, and you had that same idea, and you were a multifamily operator and buyer, owner operator, you're still only about 80% of where you need to be from an information standpoint to underwrite, evaluate, and operate a self-storage facility. even those guys struggle. Even those guys come to see Scott Myers to learn the last 20%, because that last 20% is where the profit is made or your money, your capital is lost, right? So a lot of, you did the right thing is my point, by not doing
Thank you, Joe. I was telling him, and I appreciate you backing me up on that.
You're 100%. You're 100% welcome there.
Well, how do you know I made the wrong decision? That's what I mean, or the right decision. I've questioned that. It's still there.
The dog, bro. The thing was.
I mean, now they've turned it into a car lot in front of it. So I'm assuming they're trying to find other opportunities to create cash flow.
I said,
how do you know?
You probably made the right decision. Is what I said.
Because, okay, all right. Let's tell me more.
Because you probably weren't set up to again evaluate, underwrite it, negotiate it, and then operate it. You may have made money from it by default. You may have lost everything you put into it, right? Self-storage is not, we're not launching rockets. You don't need to be Elon Musk in this business, but there's still nuances to that business like any other business. And in those nuances, that last 20% where the profit is made or your original capital is lost. What I would tell people who come across the same situation, and we get these phone calls all the time, is look, information's out there everywhere. Right? Information is free. We live in the free information age. You can get it all. I'm not going to promote, all the sites out there, but there are sites out there. There's podcasts out there. There's ways to get information, right? And in fact, when I open up Scott Myers, I told you I teach at his academy. When I literally open up his academy with this, so it's spoiled if you're listening and you end up going, but I literally open up with this kind of phrase, or maybe it's a parable out of, but there's a difference. Or what's the difference? I asked the question, what's the difference between what I say is a tomato is a fruit, right? That's information. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad, right? And I open up with that just to help people understand that information is free. What you do with it matters, right? So what I would tell anyone is go get all the information that you can possibly get your hands on. That's what I did. When I started getting Scott's emails, that was really the only information out there. You couldn't Google self-storage in 2016, 2017 and find anything probably but Scott Myers.
So Joe, when you say go get the information, what information in particular are you talking about? So if I'm trying to evaluate, if I have my eye on opportunities, right? Like I see one down the street for me. That's I think probably more common than not. Maybe how someone on listening to this may want to get started. It's something in near proximity to them. They'll do the first deal because it's close to them, and then they'll expand and be more confident potentially to do deals past them, unless they're already professional operators in other things and they've had that experience. What information do I need to know? Like, what is that information I need to gain?
Yeah, so that's where I was going to. It's the wisdom. So the information's free, and in that scenario, if they're successful, they'll do the second one and the third one. If they're not successful, they might have signed, on the dotted line for $1 million of debt and put $200,000-$300,000 down. And if you're not successful, you might have just ruined your financial life, right? So what I'm saying is two-part. Go get the information, then go get either the mentorship or someone who's going to help you, a consultant who's going to help you get yourself into that deal. And that's what Scott Myers provides, right? We are Scott Myers students, mentor students. We came through his program because we, in all of our business, this is true in distressed debt. We went out and got the information, and then we paid for someone to show us how to apply it, right? That's the wisdom part. So you can't get the wisdom except for someone holding your hand. I'm not a big climber, or, my wife makes fun of me for she wants to hike more than I do type of thing. But if I was going to climb Mount Everest, I would take a guide.
100%. Right? No, and to your point, Scott is the man. Like, he's the OG. We call him the OG. He has this built-in mentorship program that people from our show have attended and everything else. But talk about the consultant. Like, that's the piece I don't think that I've heard before. First of all, how does that work? And would Russ have called up a consultant in that case? He drives by, he gets this opportunity. Hey, you want to buy this? My dad died. What would that relationship look like?
100%. Yeah. So, and again, what you're going to get from a mentorship or a consulting relationship is that wisdom, right? So, for taking this specific example, So Russ, you call me, hey, I've got this scenario. What do we do? Well, we've talked about how we underwrite 1,500 a year, right? We're gonna take it through our entire process, which is information you can find, but what do you do with it, right? So, for instance, the first thing we look at is, do we want to even be there? Yeah, it's an operating facility. And the first thing you say is, well, it's operating. It has to be successful. Well, does it? Maybe the guy has no cost basis. Maybe there's no debt on it. So if there's no debt service, he's got to cover his taxes and his employee if it's his mom who's living in the apartment above, right?
Hey,
right?
That's a good strategy. Just saying.
You have very little overhead. However, if I'm buying it, unless I'm paying cash, I'm probably need a loan. So now I have debt service. I've got expenses, and employee is not your only expense. You have utilities, right? You have taxes, utilities, employees. Those are your big ones. But is it viable? We always ask ourselves, is this where we want to be? I don't care what the deal is. If it's free, do I want to operate a facility here? What does that look like? Well, am I in a growing market or not? Where's the population going? Is it trending stable, up or down? If it's trending down, I'm losing my customer base. How do I fill units? And if I can't fill units, I can't raise the rate.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, if I would have only known that they were going to build 55 build-to-rent homes right behind it 4 years later, 5 years later, I mean, I would say it was an opportunity. I just didn't know that was going to happen.
That's nice. 55 homes is nice, but how many? So you've added 55 times 2.5. You've added 110, 120 people to my denominator, right? So what I'm looking at is, do I want to be here as population? Also, what's the supply index, which is an industry term for us, but really it's a calculation. How many available square feet per people in the market? So 55 homes is adding 2.5 people times 55. It's 110. I don't know. It's 100 and probably 50, right? But how many square feet are in that market? Am I in an oversupplied market or an undersupplied market? I don't even know the occupancy of this facility that we're looking to buy, right? That where the guy passed.
So think about that. So from that perspective, like obviously I want to know occupancy. I want to know what the demographics are in the area.
Median household income, population, what's the occupancy of the facility, what's the rate? Well, not just what's the rate in each unit size across my competitors.
Yeah. And when you're buying, clearly you want to buy low so that you can add value in most situations, I would think. So if it had low occupancy, why does it have low occupancy? But also at the same time, that means I have an opportunity. If I can do a better job at putting people into those spots, then I'm going to immediately gain revenue and income.
It's either an opportunity or the reason it's for sale.
Right, exactly. So
you're nailing the opportunistic points. We're looking for bad management. We call it old mom and pop management, where they're just they've already made it. It's cash flowing. It's paid off. They don't really care. In fact, a lot of times they're looking for facilities they just want to keep them full. So when we're looking at facilities, maybe answer this way. The common traits that we see and look for are when I'm talking to the seller, or things like, hey, we're 100% full. We're the lowest rates in town, right? Our customers love us because we never raise rates on them. Those are opportunities in a properly supplied, growing market.
You're saying that the opportunity isn't always the fact that it's 50% occupied. It's 100% occupied, but they haven't raised rates in 10 years. And you're like, oh, there's an opportunity there. I don't have to go put new customers in it. All I have to do is just jack their rate up.
Well, both, right? And then in those scenarios, you would love to see that they're not marketing, they have no website, and they can't rent, online or from their phone and all that stuff, right?
So
the
fact
that
management is dead is not the only opportunity.
No, it's a big one, but it's not the only opportunity. By the way, look at the flip side, because a lot of people will come to us with deals, and they're not deals, and they're in growing markets, but they're 100% full, and they're the top of the market, and they have a website, and their customers do rent online, and they just had a rate raise. Where am I going from there?
Yeah, there's not enough meat.
I'm not buying an opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm buying a job or cash flow, or, maybe cash flow.
There was nothing worse than walking into class when you're in school and the teacher saying, pop quiz day.
Why? Because you were unprepared. Are you unprepared, though, for financial freedom?
Don't be. Find out how close you are by taking our 30-second quiz at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/quiz.
Talk to me about this part of it. Obviously, you and your partner are not individually managing these units that you have bought. So how difficult would it have been for me to, if I would have bought it, assuming all those metrics were great, how difficult is it to put proper management in it? Do you try to do local? Do you guys go and just find professional and just come in and not try to reinvent the wheel? Where do you go?
So you kind of have three bands of management styles. Professional, right, which we'll call like the Publics and CubeSmarts and Extra Space. They're not managing, nor will it be worth it for you as the owner to have them manage anything less than 50,000 square feet. The closer you get to 100,000 square feet, the more the economies of scale come in with them being the manager. And by the way, you wouldn't be able to manage that yourself. I mean, you could, but you'd have to have help, right? Now you're talking one or two people, full-time managers, that type of thing. Then you kind of got that 50,000 to 20, 25,000 band where you can't really, you can have third-party management, but it's kind of, it's not, I don't want to demean them by saying it's not professional. I don't mean that. I mean, it's not your CubeSmart, your NSAs. It's not your institutional. That's a better word.
And they probably just don't have all those processes and systems that those institutional
softwares might be different. Maybe we're talking dynamic pricing. Maybe we're not. We're probably also talking part-time and remote management, right? So that's what we do. We find ourselves in that bandwidth, which is kind of sub 50. And there's a reason for that. There's a saying I love is if you want to beat Tiger Woods at something, you can, just don't play him in golf, right? So for that translated to our world, I'm not trying to compete with CubeSmart, Extra Space, and Public. I can't. I'm a boutique company, and so are you buying your first deal. So we're looking in the smaller facility anyway. The dollars are going to be less too to get into them. We're not talking 5 million plus. We're talking 2-3 million and under, or even $1 million and under. And then from a management standpoint, we're also probably not talking multi-story buildings, right? Where you need full-time management. We're talking drive-up storage that can have, electronic access and electronic access to units. And that's how we manage, right? So we've got security cameras galore. We're very tech driven. COVID, believe it or not, really accelerated the technology in storage because everything had to be contactless, right?
So talk about how did it change from when it was before that to now? What do you see happen? You used
to see more on-site managers to collect, the either cash payments or Western Unions or whatever, or just checks, right? So that was one function. They would meet people there to actually move them into a unit, give them a lock. They would clean out units. You still have some of those functions. You just don't need them all day, every day because of technology. So, and even, storage, it used to be, and it's still important, your location, but it used to be, you had to be, the traffic count was the most important. Well, today, let me ask you, Russ, if you're moving and you need a storage, or you're sitting where you're sitting right now and you need a storage facility, are you going to get in your car and go drive around, or are you going to pick up your phone and go storage near me on Google?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Easy. Just the first one I can get to.
So the technology matters. And by the way, are you going to pick up the phone and call them? Or if it says rent now on your phone, are you going to rent now? Right.
Yeah, I would rather do that. There's
no more technology. And that's what COVID drove. The more technology that's involved. And we as a customer base, almost regardless of age, but certainly the younger you are, the more tech driven you are.
And because of that, though, Joe, are you saying that the technology now, I could just buy a software and add that to my existing mom and pop units that I'm buying, and I don't have to go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to build this out? I could just literally buy their software, probably with some sort of monthly subscription, and now I've immediately increased my opportunity with the marketplace and the people already in those units.
I'm going to high level that is yes. So there are storage management solutions out there that incorporate your website, your obviously your facility management, your website, call centers, dynamic pricing, all of that is built into the technology package that you can buy. And there's menu of services that you can use. But we're able to. The point is, someone like yourself keeping that one facility. Let's say you did come to us and we underwrote it for you, and it does check out, and we did help you negotiate it. We did help you transition from seller to buyer, something we haven't really talked about. And then we skipped right into you managing it. Yeah, you're going to be able to put all that in place and manage it yourself. And by the way, it doesn't have to be around the corner from you. There's the closest facility to me where I said our home office is in Wayne, Pennsylvania, which is outside of Philadelphia. The closest facility we've ever bought is an hour and a half away. The next closest is 3 hours.
Well, so Joe, I'm gathering from our conversation, one, the long road is I need to become mentored. I want to learn this. I want to become an operator. I want to put deals together. I need to call Scott. I need to go be a part of this academy and this mentorship.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and you want to do that no matter what. But somebody that says, hey, there's some opportunities around me. I want to work with somebody. Maybe I learned by doing with somebody else. And you're saying a consultant is somebody I can reach out. By the way, you're sharing all this really cool knowledge, and there's probably 1,000 things we can't cover on today's show. But how then does that consultant, they do this upfront work, which you've already kind of told us, the underwriting and all this sort of thing. Then from there, what happens next? So they give it back to you? Do they partner with you? Like, what's the next step for a consultant relationship?
Joey, you nailed it. So what I recognize in teaching at the academy and talking to folks is that there are plenty of folks, you can learn how to do it all yourself there. There are plenty of folks that just don't want to. They can't, maybe they don't want to leave their W-2 job or can't leave it right now, but they still want to buy the first facility or the first 3 until they can leave their job, right? So they don't have the time, or sometimes they just don't want to, or they're not good at. We all have unique abilities. Some of us just aren't good at finding deals and negotiating them with sellers. So that's where the consultancy steps in. I highly recommend you go get the mentorship, the knowledge, the wisdom. You get the wisdom and the knowledge with the mentorship, and I highly recommend that. But short of then being able to apply that for whatever those reasons are, and there's a lot of people that can or won't or just don't have the ability to, that's where the consultant can come in. That's where we can step in and say, yeah, we're going to find it for you. We're going to interview. We're going to talk to you about what makes sense for you from a
standpoint. You said you'll find it for me too?
Yeah, we'll find it. Yeah, we're looking at 30 deals a week. They don't all work for us.
Okay, so I don't have to find the one next door to Russ's house. I literally just say, I'm looking for my first deal, and you're like, hey, we underwrote this one last week.
Well, it's more involved than that. We're gonna learn a lot about.
Come on,
you like the way he operates.
I'm ready to go. Let's go.
2-second answer is yes, but the 20-second answer is I want to get to know who Joe Muir is. I want to find out what you're capable of buying. What's going
very little.
This is a short conversation, Joe.
What's going to work for you. Once we know that, then we can go find the right deals for you. We can put them in front of you. Does this work, Joey? No. Okay. Does this work? Yes, that one works better. Great. Then we're going to, what skipped over a lot of this for people are us, just negotiating them and understanding how to read through the management reports and say, this isn't worth $1 million. It's only worth $900,000. These reports there's fluff in these reports. That's the underwriting. And then we get into negotiating them. And by the way, how are we financing this thing? Can I negotiate a seller finance with the seller? There's an art involved in some of that. Then the legal document. We do that all day, not all day long, but we've done it a lot where we negotiate the legal terms of this contract. What if this? What if that? And then we got to close it. Transition it. You got to it sounds like it's easy, but it's not. There's no keys to hand over. The keys it's a lot of work. It takes 3 days to a week, depending on the size of the facility, to hand the keys over.
Right.
Now you're changing out websites, phone number, all kinds of stuff. And then while we're doing all that, we got to talk about how are you going to manage this? Do we need to put somebody in place for you? Are you going to do it yourself? Do you need a management course? Maybe we send you back to Scott Myers to brush up on how to manage this thing. Have you joined his mastermind so that you can learn best practices as you're going, along the way? And then are we only doing one, or is this part of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over some time frame? So, yeah, I think everyone, and I'm speaking as as someone who's been through the mentorship program, it's invaluable. That's why I give back and I teach at the academy. But then, there's plenty of people that just, look, I don't have time to do this, or I don't want to do this. Can you do it for me? And the answer is yes.
So, Joe, just so the person, I know we're having to land a plane here, but there's a lot of information and there's a bunch of results hogs on this podcast that really want to know, what is the end result? What is the so what? So when you find a good deal, which you would declare is a good deal, and I'm assuming out of the 5 that you've purchased, you've said those are good deals, and hopefully they're turning out to be the good deal that you thought that they were going to be. What is the so what? What should I expect on my money if I'm going to get into one of these deals?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and we've acquired 18, but we could have, we only launched the consulting service in the last couple of months, but we could have, had we been consulting this whole time, probably put 15 to 20 people into deals a year that were really good deals. And I'll answer your question in a second. I'm not filibustering. The reason we didn't buy them ourselves is because we have investors that have expectations, right? So from a capital stack standpoint, they don't always work for us. But if it's just Russ Morgan and his wife buying the deal around the corner, you get to go use an SBA loan and finance it at 85, 90%. And you have your own capital you're putting down. Maybe you're putting down $100, $200, $300,000 all in with working capital, et cetera, right? Now that's your deal with no investors to answer to, and no investors to send cash flow to and profit split with. It's a whole different dynamic. Those deals are out there galore. What does that look like if you're putting let's just say 250, right? A lot of people we're talking to are in that around a $250,000, $300,000 range. I think you should be easily expect 250 to 500 on the out, 4 or 5 years from now.
Are you cash flowing on that?
Along the way, let me just say this. Cash flow along the way, although each deal is a little different. Some have more cash flow, some have less. That's where that decision process comes in when I was talking about with Joey. Does this deal work for you? No, there's not enough cash flow. Okay, well then here's this one. It says more cash flow.
There's no cash flow. I'm out. I'm just going on record right here. Okay.
Fair enough. And I totally get and Joey, there's you, and then there's others that say, I have more W-2 income than I know what to do with. I don't want the cash flow. I want the long-term capital gain of $500,000. Okay. Well, then here's this deal looks like this. It's light on cash flow, but because of these characteristics, in 5 years, we're going to turn that 250 into 500.
So with that, Joey, you're talking about like getting it out in 5 years. So it's not always about getting the cash flow, but it's buying and selling every 5 years. So in essence, if I was buying one of these deals at least every year, once a year, then it's starting in 5 years. As I started selling it, basically I would have a cash flow of 500,000. If that, using your example,
you would have a laddered effect of that cash flow. Yeah. And look, to each his own. I know people that have 10-year time horizons and no plans on selling them because they don't want to. That's where the consultancy comes in. What are your goals? Or is it Joey wants cash flow? So if Joey's my client, I'm only looking for deals that are cash flow in the near term. And by the way, cash flow, there's nothing wrong with cash flow and storage, because cash flow means if we're controlling our expenses and we're increasing our cash flow, we're increasing our NOI, and that's how we're trading these things anyway, right? So if we're growing the NOI, we're growing the value of the facility regardless. So that's why, but believe it or not, we do look for cash flow. We want that. But it doesn't mean if it doesn't have cash flow, it's not a great deal. Some deals don't cash flow for 2 years. That doesn't work for Joey, but Russ, that might work for you, right? At the end of year 5, they both make, $500,000 on your 250 investment. Well, we got to the same place. We just got there differently.
Right. Well, Joe, I mean, I'm just so grateful that you're willing to come on today to help us see yet another way to get into the self-storage game. Sometimes it can feel like a really heavy lift to have to invest all of the time and energy and effort of going through all the coaching, the mentorship, the information that you said. But maybe through this consultant role, like it sounds like you guys offer that to people, that it almost kind of helps you shorten that learning curve by doing it alongside someone else.
Yep.
And then being able to say, okay, this is serious. I want to continue to do this more and more, and then continuing that education process. For people that wanted to kind of like reach out to you in light of this, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, my email is probably the best way, joe@belroseam.com. It's 1L, BELROSE, A as an asset, M as in management.com. Of course, you put it on the screen, so now I sound like an idiot. But you can go to our website, belrosestoragegroup.com. But Joe, you nailed it. For folks that are out there, like a lot of people that come to us, they're thinking about franchises, right? Well, we're talking the same amount of dollars, except there's no franchise. It's your own business. In storages, I know you focus on passive, and it can be as passive as you want. It can be slightly active. A lot of people we see are looking at franchises or looking at single family, flipping single families or small multifamilies. It's just another vehicle that you can add to your investment portfolio. That is, again, we're not launching rockets. There's a learning curve, but if I can do it, you can do it.
Are you sure that Russ can do it though?
I'm
between you and me.
Look, between you and I know Russ can do it.
Yeah. All you have to say is I can't, and that's all the motivation I need.
Yes.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for asking me.
A lot of fun to talk about this, as if the three of us were just thinking about how do we buy self-storage, and now all of a sudden I'm motivated to get you guys to start looking for deals for Joey and I. And, we're looking for professional property managers that's going to manage this thing, because he and I are not going to come anywhere close to that piece of it. So all the deals that you can find for us that's going to work with us paying someone else professionally to run it, we're coming your way soon. Tribe, I hope you guys enjoyed having Joe on the show.
I would love to find you guys a deal and come back on and interview you as to how you're doing with it.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Tribe, thank you so much for listening. If you found value, just take a screenshot, tag us somewhere, so we'll create more content just like this. Have an amazing day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand, so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.